I am dealing with CEO of Greater Dayton Premier Management, and she can't get the math straight. She is a ex federal prosecutor who can't get the fucking math straight on my account. And she refuses to protect me or anyone. She's not protecting any tenants, any families, or any families that they put tenants in contract with. She's not protecting them from the criminal activities of these landlords. And she's not following federal regulation. She is a criminal, just like the county commissioners are and the entire administration in Montgomery County, Ohio. They are criminals that refuse to close this federal loophole, even though I've been to 4 county commission meetings and they promised me they were going to close this federal loophole. So, and this last line, I meant every word of what I'm saying here. The Rent Ready agents refused, Rent Ready app, they refused to give me the accounting documents. I filed a complaint with the police department, the Ohio Division of Real Estate, the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Communication Commission over this unlawful disaster. And the Jennifer Heapy that says that's outside of her job description or whatever. But she's admitting that she's not going to protect any. She's a danger to everyone in the public housing. She's a danger to every single family, every child, every disabled person, every veteran. Especially failing to follow this federal regulation. This administration can no longer be trusted with my life and well-being due to the historical facts already upon the record. I will spend every spare moment closing this federal loophole by myself if I have to. If I do that by myself, I will also work towards making sure no one in this administration has the opportunity to jeopardize the safety and well-being of another human being. And that's a promise. You criminals made all these promises out of sight, out of mind. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to wish you made good on those promises. I promise you that right now. I'm tired. I don't give a damn. If it's the last thing I do, I'm going to put you on the street. I'm going to return the favor like you guys have done to me 4 times. My rent was paid in full, and you threw me on the street in the middle of a pandemic. Y'all need to be thrown in jail, every fucking single one of you.
July is Disability Pride Month, a time to celebrate the strengths and contributions of people with disabilities while recognizing the importance of inclusion, accessibility, and equal opportunity. This month also marks the 36th anniversary of Americans with Disability Act, which expands rights, protections, and access for people with disabilities across the country.
Right. Unless you're in the public housing.
That I had an opportunity with residents of Stillwater Center to have some time with them. It's dedicated staff and community partners in recognizing Disability Pride Month and building a community where everyone feels valued, included, and empowered to thrive. Together, we all have a role in breaking down barriers and celebrating the contributions of people with disabilities. And I definitely had a wonderful time with Dr. Michelle and the staff over there last week. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity.
Does this right here sound like they care about disabled people, veterans?
two requests for comments by citizens. The first one is Don Faulkner. And if you would come up and state your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
69 Niagara Avenue, apartment B, Dayton, 545. I've been in this plant about 7 times. And after the first speaking, time down to 5, only the second time. You guys came down with 3. You don't want to hear about this. This is the time I've brought this to everyone's attention. And, public housing is a problem because many of the enforcing federal regulations, 24 CFR 93.53 says that's what governs the amount of the housing authority pays and the utility pays. And there's a stipulation in there that says no landlord will ask for or accept any amount over the public housing approved amount. So what happens is when the property comes up for inspection and it fails the inspection and the landlord fails to bring it in to compliance after the 30-day grace period, the public housing authority just walks away, abates their payment, and allows the landlord to file a non-payment of rent eviction. I've been evicted 3 times, and my portion of the rent was paid in full. Now, if we're not going to follow federal regulations, what we and there's another office that everyone takes if they're going to follow these rules. I've gone through 2 evictions where I went through over 100 days of retaliation. The first one, I had 15 code enforcement violations that were not disclosed when I signed lease. Within 2 weeks, the basement steps collapsed and I broke my arm. And then the landlord commenced on a non-stop retaliation campaign wanting to get out of it. He got me out of it. He held on to the rent check for Christmas. He held the December rent check, filed for non-payment of rent, and another check. And then I get into another place out in Drexel, and the Public Housing Authority did their annual inspection, and the property failed. They give the landlord 30 days to bring in compliance. He had no interest in doing that. So,
Mr. Faulkner.
The Housing Authority abates their payment.
Mr. Faulkner, your time's up. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You guys do this criminal. I'm all over these tenants.
Our next citizen is Teresa Dar. Please come up, state your name and address.
Yeah.
You have 3.
Cut me off at 3 minutes. I told them that they're all criminals, and I've already promised everybody what I was going to do. So, you can't be surprised. I'm going to unseat every one of you criminals. You need to go to jail. I'm going to have to get in touch with this lady right here because she's dealing with child protection services and the family law court. Like I've reported before, they put these kids, they have a contract with Stillwater. You'll hear, I think she says it in this part right here. And she acknowledges the same thing that I've reported before about children's services being a human trafficking problem.
1st, 2027.
Motion to approve.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Comments from citizens. We have one, Teresa Dar. As you know, come up, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Teresa Dar, 3901 East 3rd Street, Dayton, Ohio, 45403. I bring to you 5 updates of previous reports. Number 1 is silence from leadership. Every member of this commission was fully briefed via email on the critical dangers facing youth emancipated by the JFS Director in 2025. Despite the severity of these systemic failures, there has been absolute silence from the commissioners to meet or address the dangers to these youth. Number 2, state law violations and misallocated funds. Ohio law mandates that every foster child teen receives vocational training prior to emancipation, yet not one single youth out of 91 emancipated youth by Montgomery County JFS in 2025 received any vocational training. Taxpayer funds were specifically allocated to JFS for this training. The money was taken, but the training never happened. The question is, where did these funds go? Rapidly escalating tax debt. While mandated services are withheld, your current JFS policies added an average of $74,795 every day to the taxpayers.
And they
Since
do
August
nothing.
last, 3 weeks ago, that is an additional $2,094,247 in brand new tax debt added to the taxpayers, voters, and residents of Montgomery County in the past 3 weeks. Number 4, sex trafficking. The sex trafficking pipeline versus the Griffin solution. Nationally, 68% of sex trafficking victims originate from foster care. Our community volunteers are currently tracking where these 91 untrained youth were emancipated, and many of them straight to the homeless shelters and the sex traffickers. The Griffin Academy Foster Care Training Program intercepts this horror show through our trades curriculum, creating a pipeline that transitions youth into self-sufficient professional earnings of 25 to 60 and housing rather than sex trafficking and homeless shelters. Number 5, public awareness and accountability for the missing children. Public awareness campaigns are active across 16 digital platforms so taxpayers understand the failures occurring on your watch. Reviewing the 2025 JFS data leaves us with one final demand. Where are those missing teenagers that were emancipated in 2025? The people want to know. I want to know.
I do too.
You should want to know. I yield my time.
Thank you, Ms. Strong.
You got nothing to say to that, do you? Fucking criminals. And this Mary McDonald, she's the one, she was the mayor when my guitars were stolen, and I discovered the police department in Trotwood was allegedly involved in human trafficking. Because when the officer came to my house about the theft of some items, I said, hey, we can go over. I know right where they're at. I can tell you what was stolen. You can go through their stuff and find it and place them under. Oh, we can't do that. And besides that, we know where they're at. We know what they've been up to. And we know her parents have been trafficking her for sex. That's what the officer said. I was like, well, that was weird. So I asked him what Paris' full name was. Paris Martin. I came in the house, typed it in on the computer, and the first thing that come up is a missing persons report. She had been missing since she was 14 years old. 2 years she'd been missing. Right in the area where she stole items from my house, right in the area where these police officers say they know she's been trafficked for sex. So I went on their Facebook page, and said, hey, your officer never said nothing about her being on the missing persons report when he said you guys knew that she's being trafficked for sex, and they lost their fucking mind. The detectives were calling me, making all these crazy allegations. Oh, so you had this underage girl at your house. Were you gonna let her spend the night? What were you gonna do to her? And shit like that. That detective, I'd like to smash her face in because I hate pedophiles. I was molested as a child. And you want to get fucked up real quick? Let me see you do something stupid to kids. I'll beat your fucking brains in. These people are scum of the earth. Look at those Carolyn Rice and Judy Dodge. They're a couple fossils. The fucking chairs have petrified snail juice from these fossils sitting there for so long doing nothing. Look at that fat, ugly bitch. Look at Judy Dodge. Career criminals. You can listen to every one of these county commission meetings and you'll hear somebody complaining about the theft going on in the county. I'm fucking sick of it.
Terry. Okay, Don Faulkner. Good afternoon, Don.
Good afternoon.
Long time no see.
How y'all doing?
All right. I understand you're not doing all right, though. You've tagged me on a couple
I want to
things.
congratulate this veteran that you guys
Yeah,
recognized.
that was so
And
nice.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
I want to apologize to you guys too. First, I want to apologize for my appearance, and I want to apologize to you for my behavior back in 2017. I thank you for the outcome of that
It all
event.
worked out, didn't it?
Yes, ma'am. And I want to apologize for my recent behavior with the situation that's going on. Okay, my aggressive behavior is, it's kind of warranted. But anyways, I want to share something that's important for the for people that might be in the same situation. Because a lot of people don't know how things work. But when you're in a housing program and you have a contract and things like that, when they do a housing inspection, if the landlord fails and he doesn't recover in a timely fashion, the public housing authority abates their payment. Okay, and in the contract it says it has provisions for what the tenant has to pay and what the landlord or the public housing authority pays, and then and it says that the landlord is not allowed to ask for a penny above that. Okay, so what happens inadvertently is when that time period is up, that grace period is up, and the housing authority abates their payment, then the landlord can hold on to your rent check for a month while they file for eviction, and then and go to the court, and essentially they're asking for you to pay their portion of the rent, the public housing authority. If you keep your portion current and you go to that hearing, there should be somebody from the housing authority and what other representatives in the voucher program administration of that. They should be to helping you stop that, because it's federal regulation. It's in the public housing contract. Okay, so under 24 CFR 983-353, that's where it's in the contract and it's in the regulation that that's not supposed to happen, but it does. And there's thousands of people in this community who've been unlawfully evicted. And as you guys know, I'm 2 days away from that. I apologize for my appearance, but I'm playing the part that I'm about to start playing. You know what I mean? So I would appreciate if you guys could, maybe look into that a little bit. I'm in a much better mindset now because people are starting to see and respond.
Okay.
So,
Well, so you've tagged me on Facebook, and I've tried to
I
understand.
have Facebook. I haven't had Facebook since I left
It
this.
said Don
council.
Faulkner. You did something. Well, you sent me something.
Not me. I don't have it. I haven't had it since you guys had the.
Somebody's using your name. Then it was the same issue, but what is the remedy that you're seeking besides not being evicted?
Well, I'm not going to be evicted because I am going to. I'm moving my stuff into storage, and I'm going to be on the streets. I'm homeless because I can't afford another unlawful eviction on my credit. So, I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't afford that on my record again. I've already went through one out in the municipal court out there in New Lebanon, and everyone knew about it. My rent was current, and unfortunately, fortunately, the judge is no longer on the bench, but he allowed the landlord to walk over and hand me the rent check. Mm-hmm. In the courtroom, and my rent was paid. So something's really got to be done here because it's, we need to get these people off our streets, and we need to protect our citizens and our veterans. I'm a third generation honorably discharged veteran of the United States military, and I'm on the HUD-VASH program at the Dayton VA. They all know about it. They don't even know what the federal regulation is governing their job.
You have talked to the VA.
Oh, they all are aware of
Okay.
it. And what happens is they don't follow the regulation and protect you and let you go to court. They let this unlawful thing happen, and it's tragic. It's not just me,
Okay.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you, and
and thank you for
Jerry,
accepting not accepting, but let me make my apology.
No, you're fine. Jerry can follow up and try to help you figure out next steps, what can be done, because something doesn't sound right.
Well, I don't have a phone. I'm not going to have a phone or a computer or anything here in a minute, so.
Okay. Well, if you just stay after for a few minutes, Jerry can connect you too. Thank you. Okay, Jennifer Corcoran.
The following presentation explains a huge problem concerning an out-of-control federal government welfare program called child support. This presentation will provide a simple solution to that problem. Child support has grown like a cancer in every state across the United States, now doing the opposite of its intended purpose. It was designed to reduce the cost of welfare paid by the government to single moms when the fathers were absent and not involved, but is now increasing costs dramatically. It also claims to help children, but in reality, the federal and state child support bureaucracies have become harmful to children, primarily using this program to undermine the father-child relationship. The child support problem is so out of control, it is begging for a solution, and I have a great solution. This video describes 1. The history and evolution of the federal child support program, 2. Why it is referred to as Title 4D, 3. How this program impacts state child support laws and policies, 4. The congressional purpose of the 4D program, explaining why child support is not for children and never was intended for children. 5. How the program has expanded far beyond congressional intent. 4D services were never meant for involved fathers who willingly provide the basic needs for their children. 6. The problems that arise with this 4D child support program on both a federal and state level. It is the only welfare program with no income eligibility standards. Because of this, anyone and everyone who applies is granted the whole range of collection services. This has become incredibly harmful to children and an enormous waste and abuse of taxpayer money. 7. To conclude, I explain an easy solution as a first step by creating income eligibility standards for government child support services where none exist today. While this presentation was given in 2005, it is still completely relevant today. I encourage you to watch the entire 1-hour presentation to educate yourself about the basics of this program. This is information the Child Support Agency will never tell you, but you need to know if you want to be part of any meaningful reform.
Today's topic is Title 4D Welfare Services. I'm going to answer 2 questions in the next hour and a half. And those questions are, first of all, does the federal government allow the state to initiate reform and clarify eligibility standards for Title 4D welfare services? The second question, will state legislators be assured the state won't lose the entire federal funding for 4A and 4D as the state DHS alleges? As we go through those 2 questions, the first question, I will review the outline listed here. We'll review family law versus welfare law, public rights versus private rights, the history and purpose of 4D as it is in the Social Security Act, the limitations of Title IV, Title 4D amendments, the unauthorized expansion of the 4D program, outcomes that produces regarding process and fiscal outcomes, and then we'll talk about the constitutional violations created as a result of that overreach. The second question I'll review and outline that will answer and describe for you the CPR solution, what the DHS claims, what the misrepresentative federal penalties are, what they look like, the positive impact that change and reform would have on government budgets, and also hopefully we'll have some time to discuss some fiscally responsible decisions that we can work with together. I want to begin with a disclaimer and make sure that you know that I am not an attorney and nothing I say today should be in any way, shape, or form considered legal advice. Though we have run through all of our information by our advisory board attorneys, several people who were able to work with and give us that legal input. I have also received information from 3 judges, 2 retired district court judges in Minnesota, 1 retired appeals court judge in Minnesota that believes that our information is accurate. And we continue to expand that base of interested judges and lawyers, although I found that retired judges are more willing to talk to us. The first question, does the federal government allow the state to initiate reform and clarify eligibility standards for 4D welfare services? The first subject in that area is family law versus welfare law. At the legislature, you've heard a smorgasbord of family law issues. There's child support legislation that Senator Neville has done an incredible job working with, which mostly focuses on the guidelines, whether it's a net income, income shares, cost shares, whatever it is. Then there's been legislation on joint physical custody. There's been legislation repeatedly year after move-aways, and really many other family law related issues. Things as like OFPs, parenting plans, imputed income, a host of different topics that affect family law or that are part of family law. And last but not least on this list, of course, is Title 4D welfare reform. And I put this slide up here on purpose to show you that Title 4D welfare reform is different. It's something separate from all of these other issues, so it does not need to be in conflict or worrisome with any of the other legislation that we do also get involved.
I'm going to stop it right there because as you can see, this was 2019 and none of this has changed whatsoever. So I'm going to pull up actual Social Security Act Title 4D and 4E, so we can look exactly at what's going on now. Come on, goddammit. Alright, so this doesn't get to the bottom. This is the Social Security laws. This is the Social Security website. And this is all about block grants. This is, and the language is confusing for people. You know, when you read it, you're like, oh, so that's grant money for the payment of child support. No, no, no. The grants are given to the family law court for destroying your family. Okay? You gotta read all this stuff because the most important part is finding out what the prohibitions are. If they provide you any kind of a domestic violence assistance, you know, treatment or drug treatment or marriage counseling or any of that stuff, these people don't get the grant money. That's why I repeat, you're not going to get any of that treatment from the state. That's why, and all these laws are set up so they can throw the parent in jail. They're not providing any of this assistance. You got to read all this stuff because these provisions are concerning the grant money, which is federal incentivization for the family law court to destroy the family. Period. Like I said, if they're offering any of this assistance to a family who is not qualified, which the judges in the family law court don't get their reward from the federal government. That's a fact, Jack.
There's a federal law called Title 4D. It was passed in the late 1970s. This is the cause of the divorce explosion in the 1980s and the creation of, there were no family courts in the early 1980s. They didn't exist. They were created specifically because of Title 4D. Title 4D provides for matching funds for the collection of child support. So I don't know about Virginia, but I know about Texas. In Texas, it's $500 million. It's $480 to $520 million per year. The more child support that's issued, the more money the state gets in reimbursements. The more it collects, the more it gets in reimbursements. The entire Texas Attorney General's office is funded by the child support collection matching funds from Title 4D. Texas actually has a law in the Texas Government Code which requires all judges to rule in cases in such a way to maximize Title 4D reimbursements.
Wow.
Before anything is heard in case. This explains a lot of peculiar things in family court. Family court's known for giving custody to the dysfunctional parent, and they just do it consistently. They do it all the time. I watched a case ahead of mine one time, and they gave 2 children back to a heroin addict mother who had successfully passed the drug test after 15 days for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
What was the alternative?
Why would they do that? That makes no sense, right? Everybody goes, nobody in their right mind would do things like, why did they do it? Here's why they do it. The state knows full well it will never collect child support from a heroin addict.
Oh.
And all that matching money, they don't get it.
Got it.
They know that the responsible parent will bankrupt themselves to protect their child and to take care of their child, and they'll get all the matching money for that. So the decision in family court doesn't come down to, are you a fit and willing parent? If that were the case, then in 99% of the cases, you would have both parents getting 50-50 custody because both parents are fit and willing, right? Most abuse is actually much rarer than we think, right?
Yeah.
So abuse and neglect, those are two ends of the spectrum, right? So what they do is they say, which person here will give me the maximum Title IV reimbursement for the state?
Wow.
And that's the person who loses custody so that they pay child support. That's the real calculation that's going on. You mentioned CPS, and if you're looking at laws around this, you need to know about Title IV-E. Title IV-E gives reimbursements for taking children.
There are massive federal programs that were instituted in the late 1970s that pay states trillions of dollars to tear families apart. Like in Texas, we get 66 cents on the dollar put into the Texas Treasury for every dollar of child support that's paid. So the state is now highly incentivized to issue the maximum amount of child support. That's why almost all divorces got 50-50 prior to the 1980s. And there was this skyrocketing of divorces where one parent loses custody. And that was to maximize Title IV-D reimbursements to the states. In Texas, it's $500 million to the Texas budget.
If the state is profiting off of child support?
Correct. And in most states, the Judicial Retirement Fund is funded from this money.
Government does not want you to know this.
If you get the woman out of the house and working, then you're going to increase the tax because girls are making more money now, and so they're taxed more, so the governments are making more money, and then you're killing two birds with one stone because now you're separating the man and the wife, so the man has less authority over the wife, and they're more separated, they're not as bonded, they're not as close together, and then you also send off your kids to school. So the family is separate, and when the family is independent, the family is not strong. They're easier to control, they're easier to manipulate, and the government makes more money off of it. So the idea of me working really hard, making a bunch of money, keeping my wife at home, keeping us close, and then she's with the kids, she's close to the kids, and she's programming the kids, the government does not like that because the government does not get to push what they want to my kids. For sure. They make less money because my wife doesn't work, and we're just stronger and more resilient towards them. They don't like that. So that's what I've heard.
There are massive federal programs that were instituted in the late 1970s that pay states trillions of dollars to tear families apart. Like in Texas, we get 66 cents on the dollar put into the Texas Treasury for every dollar of child support that's paid. So the state is now highly incentivized to issue the maximum amount of child support. That's why almost all divorces got 50-50 prior to the 1980s. And there was this skyrocketing of divorces where one parent loses custody. And that was to maximize Title IV-D reimbursements to the states. In Texas, it's $500 million to the Texas budget.
If the state is profiting off of child support?
Correct. And in most states, the Judicial Retirement Fund is funded from this money.
Government does not want you to know this.
If you get the woman out of the house and working, then you're going to increase the tax because girls are making more money now, and so they're taxed more, so the governments are making more money, and then you're killing two birds with one stone because now you're separating the man and the wife, so the man has less authority over the wife, and they're more separated, they're not as bonded, they're not as close together, and then you also send off your kids to school. So the family is separate, and when the family is independent, the family is not strong. They're easier to control, they're easier to manipulate, and the government makes more money off of it. So the idea of me working really hard, making a bunch of money, keeping my wife at home, keeping us close, and then she's with the kids, she's close to the kids, and she's programming the kids, the government does not like that because the government does not get to push what they want to my kids. For sure. They make less money because my wife doesn't work, and we're just stronger and more resilient towards them. They don't like that. So that's what I've heard.
Recapping the series of unlawful evictions I've gone through since returning to Ohio, to Dayton, Ohio, Montgomery County. Nothing's changed. And I had a recent meeting with the CEO of the Public Housing Authority, Ms. Jennifer Heapy. And although we were able to establish the existence of this gigantic loophole between federal regulation and state and federal laws, we were not able to come up with a viable solution. Her offer to mention it to the courts, mention it to the administration, falls way short of the obligations of her oath of office. And federal regulations that prohibit intimidation or retaliation. I've provided office of the governor, all the way down to the county administrators and commissioners individually. 200 and some days of retaliation in his last eviction. Okay, and under the Fair Housing Act is illegal to evict or threaten to evict anyone for exercising their rights. Section 5321.02 in the Ohio Revised Code, retaliatory action by landlord is prohibited. Under Section 3.07 of the Ohio Revised Code's General Provision, Chapter 3, an officer, and oaths and bonds regarding the revocation of their office and bonds, forfeiture for failing to follow the law and these federal regulations. Period. I'm putting the county commission and everyone involved, the judiciary, who have taken an oath of office to follow these Ohio codes and federal codes regulations. I want to talk to you about the landlord problem and the county administration problem that we have in Montgomery County. Before I got involved with the VA, I had one eviction on my record. I'm 63 years old. Now I've got 3 more evictions, okay? St. Vincent de Paul Veterans Family Services put me in a apartment that had 16 code enforcement violations that weren't disclosed when I signed the lease. Within 2 weeks, the basement steps collapsed and I broke my arm. And then the landlord commenced a nonstop campaign of retaliation, which everybody knew about. The St. Vincent de Paul Family Veterans Services, people knew about it. The people out at the Dayton VA Medical Center, HUD-VASH, knew about it because they're the ones that told me that I could get in the HUD-VASH program if I was homeless. When I went there, I went to Xenia and saw the HUD office. They had a sign up there that said homelessness prevention and homelessness assistance, not homelessness creation. But that's what it is, ultimately. So anyways, that first landlord kept my rent at Christmas time, filed for non-payment of rent, and mailed my check back a month later and evicted me. In the middle of it was in the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah. They were throwing families and veterans in the streets at the beginning of the pandemic. Fast forward to I finally get in. I go, I was getting, the guy out in the reason I got on the VA stuff is because the landlord out in Xenia, some Russian guy, he refused to repair the toilet that was leaking in the crawl space under the house. And he tried to sue me, and I ended up suing him and winning. But so fast forward to Midwest Acquisition and Property Management, LLC. They're scumbags. The place is still for rent over there in Heaton Avenue, and that place was getting ready to fall into the basement when they threw me out of there.
The videos are on my YouTube channel. So, they evicted me in the pandemic. I get on the HUD Vash thing, and the place that they put me in out in Drexel, the place failed the inspection. This is one of the biggest problems right here. It failed the inspection, and they give the guy 30 days to make the repairs. He didn't do it. So the Public Housing Authority, Greater Dayton Premier Management, they abate their portion of the rent, okay? But there's a federal regulation written right into the public housing contract, 24 CFR 983.353, that says the landlord cannot ask for another penny more than the Public Housing Authority's approved amount for the family or the tenant. So they abate their payment. I kept my rent payment current. The landlord filed for non-payment of rent eviction, and I went out to that courthouse out there in New Lebanon with Judge Pierges. What a dirtbag that guy is. He there was a magistrate, and 4 times they had the address wrong. I mean, that right there made them start over again. And finally, the magistrate said, "Listen, Mr. Faulkner, this ain't going to happen like this next time." And he wasn't lying. I did it by the book. And they still hadn't corrected the address. If the address is spelled wrong, it's not like the post office listed, they have to start over. Not this time. Matter of fact, Judge Pierges let that landlord hand me my check back in court, which proved what I was saying was right. The HUD Vash team out of the Dayton VA Medical Center did nothing. The Public Housing Authority did nothing. Let me go to court, get evicted by myself. It wasn't my fault. My rent was paid. So, and legal aid wouldn't help. Nobody would do shit. County commissioners, everybody knew. The attorney general for the state knew. So, I had to put my stuff in storage. Every time I put my stuff in storage, shit gets damaged, lost, you know, and I have to pay for the storage. You know, even though it didn't happen, it's not my fault or anything. So they get me into another place over a couple blocks from here, and it was great when it first started out. But the landlord, who are 2 Dayton police officers, retiring at the time, they were doing a scam bed bug treatment. They were going from there's 18 apartments in this complex. They were doing one at a time and being quiet about it. They did did his apartment, charged him $500. And then they went to the neighbor next to me, and I called him and said, "Hey man, those bugs are coming over here." And Becky Roberts, Detective Becky Roberts, says, I'm gonna call the exterminator and I'll get right back with you. She didn't get right back to me. She sent me an email later that night saying, "We'll be over there tomorrow and tell you what the plan is," right? So the plan was they were going to heat treat my apartment and put me on the payment plan. And I told them, I'm not going on a payment plan. It's unlawful. And you're not doing the treatments right. HUD guidelines for extermination of bed bugs in a multi-unit complex, you do them all You don't just do one and chase the bugs from one place to another. Well, that caused this big ruckus. They stole my shed from me. They were threatening to have me thrown in jail. Rod Roberts was raging at my door. He's a roid rager. So, and I've had to throw him out of my place 3 times physically. So, I mean, for 200 and some days, the VA people and the Public Housing Authority people and the county commissioners, Debbie Lieberman, Judy Dodge, and Carolyn Rice, all knew that I was going through hell campaign retaliation. I mean, and when they're coming at the door getting violent like that, it becomes extortion. Okay, I reported all this to internal affairs at the Dayton Police Department. They did nothing, and the chief of police swept it all under the rug. I contacted Dayton, the mayor, Mims. None of these people, they don't care about you. They don't care about the people at all. I mean, you can look at our streets and look at this city and see they don't give a damn about their voters. So anyways, I lived in my truck for 90 days. Starting on January 1st of this year, it was below freezing the first 30 some days. And they wouldn't put me in a motel. They wouldn't do nothing. They weren't doing nothing for me. And that wasn't my fault. They knew it wasn't my fault. But this time, because the way the other 2 evictions went, I put my money in, paid my rent, and so I didn't pay the rent this time. I wasn't going to waste my time because I was going to be thrown out anyways. These people are supposed to be enforcing 24 CFR 983.353. But they're not. They'll enforce it if you're a tenant and you don't hold up your end, but they don't hold the landlords accountable for anything. I've had some real good referrals, let me tell you. Woo! Had one referral where they pocketed my background check money twice. So I get in over here where I'm at now. And the paperwork had to be redone 3 times. And all 3 times, I'm like, listen, I don't know who did the math on this, but the math's not right, okay? Because my income went down a little bit. The rent only went up $100. But my portion of the rent went up 85%. I mean, $160 or something like that. Yeah, $160, at least that much. And it went from $231 to $404. So nobody was listening. Nobody would listen. So I finally went down there and talked to Carrie Ann Muhammad, who was doing Annie Roper got fired. I don't know if it was because of me or what, but she was messing up big time. But so Carrie Ann is doing Annie Roper's caseload, and she's doing my recertification, all this stuff, and I went down there because that the money wasn't right, the numbers weren't right, And she says, well, right now they're doing an audit of your account right now, somewhere in this building. I don't know where they're at, but they're working on it right now. And I made her say 3 times before I left, I said, you're going to let me know what the outcome is, right? It's very important, you know. Yes, I will. She never did get a hold of me. So I emailed her and I told her, I'm like, you know, you're acting just like Annie Roper, and told me you're going to give me the emails. You're going to give me email as soon as the results came in and all this stuff. And I told her, I said, I thought we were starting to get on the same page, you know, but everything you said would happen in our meeting didn't happen. You know, and she emails me and says, I'm not leasing. I'm not your caseworker. I was helping you. Reach out to the HCV supervisor. She was my caseworker. Nobody notified me that she wasn't my caseworker. And when I went in there to talk to her that day, the receptionist didn't say, she's not your caseworker. She didn't say nothing. She was acting like my caseworker in there. So anyways, so I emailed Miss Crawford, who is the HCV supervisor. And she wouldn't answer me. You know, I wanted to, I responded to Carrie Ann. I'm like, you weren't helping me because that would have gone like this. When I asked to see you, the receptionist or yourself could have told me I was no longer your client and pointed me to a new caseworker. Or when I explained my concerns about how my new place being only $100 per month more and my portion was doubled, and said my case was being audited in another office right then. If you were truly helping me, you would have contacted me with the results of that audit like you said you would. I made you repeat that 3 times. So anyways, and I said, I want to see the math that was used. I want to see whose math it was, who did it. And I still don't have a copy of the voucher or the lease. So, you know, I've been here for about 4 months now. I still don't have any paperwork. Been paying. They still don't got the math right. I don't believe it might be, but sure I don't think so. But anyways, I can't get anybody to cooperate with me. I've asked for. I've demanded my lease, a copy of the voucher, a copy of the math each time it changed. I want to see why I was paying more than I was supposed to. And I want to know that the math is right now. I want to know what they use for income for me and all that stuff. I have a right to see that stuff, you know. And I've been waiting for about 7 days for Jennifer Heapy, the main person over there at Greater Dayton Premier Management. I emailed her this morning and said, hey, I really would appreciate it if you would give me an update and let me know, you know, what, if any of that stuff I requested you're going to give me, because I don't know. These people are, they're above the law. There's some shady folks. But anyways, she didn't call me today. So, I don't know. My refrigerator's empty. I got change in my pocket. Maybe $1 in the bank. County commissioners. I went to another county commission meeting right before the day before I got evicted, and they were going to help me. Right, Judy Dodge's somebody was supposed to help me. Never called. Empty promises, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. So I don't know how these people keep getting elected with their terrible records. You guys must love having crappy administration, driving around the streets that beat the tires off of your and the suspension off of your vehicle, if you've even got one. Probably ain't got a job either. Probably homeless. There's this lack of enforcement of that federal regulation has put. I would like to know the actual statistic of how many families and veterans have been evicted while their rent was paid, while their portion of the rent was paid. We need to get better representatives in these offices. People that represent us. Not people that have offices of strategic initiatives that cater to non-tax paying violent criminals, putting them right back out on the street again. With good, honest people, throwing us all out in the street. I was going to go to the county commission meeting today. But I'm like, why waste my time? You get sick of being lied to, and everybody else should be too. Look at the money they spent whining and dining NATO coming to town. You know how many people they could have housed with that money? You know what they could have done to the streets with that money? The local news stations, newspapers, they're all gatekeepers. They've all had all this information too. WHIO, WDTN, and WKEF. They've all had, well, it's not WKTF anymore, or KEF, it's Dayton 24/7. They've had all this information, and they did nothing with it. They don't care. They're gatekeepers of the truth. They're the protectors of these criminals running the government. Alleged criminals. They haven't been convicted yet because you can't get anybody to do their job. And ask yourself why there is no lawyers as whistleblowers. Why they're not helping anyone. They're the front line of the war against the people. Was it that character in that Shakespeare story? I'm not going to misquote it, but he says he had a valuable thing to say about the lawyers. The first thing that really needs to be done with the judiciary is it needs to have every law that has only one purpose, and that's generating revenue. Those laws need to be erased. They serve no purpose. There's no greater good in making these people rich while we suffer. I'm not going to go into that, but that Justice Department is the main problem, because there is no justice in the judiciary. There's only revenue generation. You've got order takers enforcing unjust laws. They took an oath, and they have a responsibility to disobey unjust laws. Yeah. You guys need to stop voting for these dirtbags who do nothing for the people. They just serve themselves.